Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Thursday, it's Stephen Platt Day, so we're looking at Prophet Volume 2, Issue Number 2, cover dated September 1995. Looking at the cover here, so we're not getting any straight up Stephen Platt artwork anymore, inked by himself. We're getting Stephen Platt inked by Marlo Alquiza, who seems to be his regular inker, who's really settled in, I think does a really good job. Maybe not at first, but like I said, settles in and really kind of gets across that Stephen Platt style. I feel as though Stephen Platt has seen a bunch of his comics printed as well by this point and has realized that a lot of the hatching he's doing is useless for the printed page because it's not showing up. So he's pulled back on that a bit, and that definitely helps lend a little bit more clarity to the artwork. It's easier to read. And the coloring also has kind of toned down a little bit as opposed to most of the kind of crazy computer coloring they were doing at Image in the 90s. So definitely helps with the clarity there as well. There's an interesting sequence at the beginning of this comic here, down here, where Prophet's back in time and kind of fighting this ape tribe, which to me just kind of reminds me of 2001, A Space Odyssey, you know, the beginning sequence with the ape people. And a pretty good cover overall, kind of a Frazetta composition, the triangular composition, which works really well. And remember this interesting design here, kind of a, you know, Terminator meets Death's Head meets, as you'll see in the comic, maybe not so obvious here, the Mummy. And that's why you get the hieroglyphs back here and the ancient Egyptian kind of vibe. Prophet is a man who can travel through time, so we'll be getting different sequences through time there as well. Thankfully, we've got writer Chuck Dixon on board now, so we've got kind of a more I guess, clear storyline throughout. And basically Prophet is going through all these periods of time and time warping to find Kirby and save Kirby, his partner, from the earlier Youngblood issues. Alternate cover, Frank Miller. Thanks, Frank. That's interesting. I've seen it before. You can look that up on Google Images to find it, right, if you're interested. Penciler Stephen Platt, inker, as I said, Marlo Alquiza, colorist Christian Lichtner, color separations, Extreme Color. So I'll give, again, credit to the colorist. I feel they've pulled back a bit on the computer coloring, still doing some of those effects, but the comics just tend to be easier to read visually. And a letter Kurt Hathaway going to mention. So we go to a moment in time where Prophet is basically, or I assume that's Prophet. It could be someone else. It's hard to tell in this comic. Sometimes characters, you know, in the extreme style or the Image style of art kind of resemble each other. And he's got it seems like a cybernetic foot and a cybernetic, or at least, you know, cybernetically gloved hand. So not quite sure on the timeline here. It does feel like it's, you know, back in the past. We've got a family of Inuits here. And basically this person, Prophet, or who they call the Snowwalkers, protecting them from the gang of apes here. Once again, the 2001 apes who at this point, I guess, have learned how to kill others, right? Just like in the movie. Not quite sure what's going on down here at there's a section here where I see some kind of bloody, you know, magenta colored stuff. So I don't know if that's leftover meat or something that they're eating. I don't know. It's an odd one. I like how this one's just kind of sitting down here. And I think up close here, all the detail and stuff, he draws a fine ape in the 90s style, snow-covered faces, interesting textures, fur, skin all around. Really good job there. The little detail, it's cold, right? So the breath coming out of their mouth, I think, is an interesting detail that sometimes some artists forget in cold environments, when drawing cold environments. Always marvel at the way, the electric way he kind of depicts capes. It's all ripped up and stuff, but doesn't it feel like it's like almost like he's got static or something, and it's the capes become almost electric. And we get a standoff between Snowwalker or Prophet, I guess, and the apes, and he just decimates them here, right? And boom, we're back here with Prophet and Dr. Wells, where we left off last issue. He's finally met Dr. Wells, so again, you know, kind of a more specific plot line that had been hinted at before, but now we're actually getting that story here. And Dr. Wells is basically helping Prophet try to find Kirby somewhere in time and through all these different time periods. Like this down shot here, kind of a typical, almost looks like a Rob Liefeld down shot. I feel like the inspiration for this is here. And then I you know, give props to Stephen Platt. He's not cheaping out on the backgrounds here, because we've got, you know, Dr. Wells and his whatever technological station here, and on the screens we're seeing where Prophet's going to be headed. So Dr. Wells is basically using the hologram screens here to show Prophet where possibly Kirby might be. It's like he's leaving clues throughout history. And in this section here, it says, This wall is from central China. It dates to the times of the Shang kings, more than 1,000 years before Christ. This is the only known record of the carving on the wall. As you can see, part of the wall is in ruin. As close as I can determine, the wall represents the legend of a man called Little Giant, which of course is Jack Kirby, right? Because if you don't know about Jack Kirby in real life, he was a fairly short man, not a dwarf. But the Image guys, when creating characters that were kind of an homage to Kirby, both Rob Liefeld did it and Jim Lee did it. So Rob Liefeld made him basically, I would say, almost a dwarf, or pretty much a dwarf, and not explicitly, but sure seems like it proportionally. And Jim Lee just all out said he was a dwarf, right? And Kirby was the model for Emp in Wildcats, Lord Emp, who is Jacob Marlowe, if I'm remembering his name correctly. He's kind of the leader, I guess, of the Wildcats. Didn't follow Wildcats for too long, so I don't know what happened with all of that. So basically what they're doing is they're looking through all the time stream and the different periods to try and, again, save Kirby. Love the hatching that Stephen Platt's doing here. Once again, I feel like it's a little more controlled than what he had before, or at least more in mind with what it's going to look like in print, right? And then there's some kind of confusing story ideas, right? Kirby told me that it was not you who created me. He said you recreated me to save yourself. You were sent to me, John, sent to kill me, right? But we don't have the luxury of time. You'll have to wait here to hear the true story of your creation. So again, we're not getting all the details yet on the creation. Here's a 2-page sequence that I find the colors work really well. You've got greens and purples, right? Complementary colors here, and not going too crazy with the gradients and the different values, right? So a very light green to create that light effect here, and the kind of a filter over Prophet as he travels the time stream. Thinks really works really well. I like the worm's eye view shot of this Dr. Wells lab and all the technology and stuff. I think works really well. Here's where Stephen Platt is being a little bit smarter. Instead of drawing everything out, he's using silhouettes, which helps again with the clarity and reading the visuals. And then we get a cool kind of splash page of Prophet traveling through the time stream. And again, I find the colors work really well. They're very subdued as opposed to most image coloring of the time. And just are in service of the story and work really well. And it's a really cool depiction of Prophet. I feel like Stephen Platt is even toning down the proportions more and more, and eventually, his style will, proportion-wise at least, will start to look a little bit more almost like Jim Lee-ish or Wildstorm Studios, more so than the extreme look or the Todd McFarlane look. I feel like more as he advances, he's going more towards a Jim Lee, more illustrative look, and working less with the exaggerations that maybe a McFarlane or Liefeld would throw in there, right? As opposed to a few issues ago when he was fighting Crypt, and it was just insane as far as proportions and hatching and stuff. So he's sent back in time to this place that we saw in Dr. Wells's lab, and he's confronted by what can only be described as a cybernetic mummy is what I feel is going on there. So it's almost like a manga influenced mummy, right? The design is pretty cool, I think. Works well, especially when the fight starts in earnest and we get this cool full bleed double page splash. So here's where Stephen Platt again is going insane with the detail and the debris and how the quantity of it, and how much there is of it, the wraps around the mummy and stuff. But he's doing it in a way that I still feel is a lot easier to read and clear than some of the stuff we saw in the past with early Moon Knight issues and the early Prophet issues. So there's still a crap load of detail and a lot of stuff to look at, but for some reason, both in the artwork and the coloring, it's just a lot easier to read. Good stuff here. So, I mean, not much more to say. We've got the Image vertical panels, of course, included, right? The McFarlane influence, the panels that everyone at Image was doing at this point. And kind of a cool fight sequence between the two. And eventually our mummy, looks a lot like Death's Head, as I mentioned before, is defeated, and Prophet is thrown through the time stream once again. It says he lost contact with Dr. Wells, so he's not exactly sure where he is. And that's basically it for this issue. He busts into the temple and finds this really cool, once again, probably manga-inspired vehicle. See, this is where Stephen Platt now is spending most of his time. I talked about last issue. The technological elements have become a lot cleaner and clearer and easier to read. And this is a very good example of that here. And then we get kind of a just very graphic, very Stephen Platt prophet face here. I like what he does with the electric, again, kind of aspect to his hair. It's a very kind of interesting design choice that works well with his style and what he tries to get across in his style with the movement and kind of the electric feel, which you're getting a little bit more of here, right? You've got a standing figure here, but he's busted the doors open that are still kind of being thrown forward, and all these kind of speed lines indicating that movement. There we go. So not much else to talk about in this issue. Did want to mention this drawing. I forget who this guy is. Don't really care, but I will say this is another period of Liefeld's art that I think looks really good. Even though he's being inked by Danny Miki on this one, I feel like there's more of the Liefeld kind of coming out in the inking and the bombastic kind of look to this character. This is the kind of stuff you want to see Liefeld doing, which he doesn't do that much of today. Feels like his characters are a lot more posed. Not that this is not a pose, but there's just something about the foreshortening and the energy of it that really hits me more so than Rob Liefeld's more recent artwork. Kind of interesting too, so we get the same figure twice. Here it's inked by Miki, and then all of a sudden it's inked by Sabal. So I'm going to assume that maybe Miki inked this part and Sabal did the faces. You know, the typical Rob Liefeld, you know, surprised face, mouth open kind of thing, I always thought was kind of weird. It almost always looks like the characters are expecting something in their mouth, and I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, there you go, guys. That is my short and brief and sweet review of Prophet issue number 2, volume 2. If you are subscribed and you're still watching the channel, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your support. If you are watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It really helps out the channel, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. We're trying to hit 500 subs. We're almost there. So your support is truly appreciated. Tell your friends and tell your neighbors, and to get subscribed to the channel and check out some comic book reviews. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and have an awesome day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.